The interviewer then says, in that respect, he was the most innovative force in the history of electric guitar. Gales responds, I don't even think he was aware of his skills and the impact he'd end up leaving on this world. He had been doing things that hadn't been done prior to him. But of course, he was also taking his own influences and molding all of them into his own unique character. Inspiration is very, very powerful and can lead you into a room with the door closed for days. You'll be trying to emulate all these magical noises made by the people you are influenced by. And it will take you in a new direction, quite often by randomly trying stuff and making a few mistakes along the way. It's easy to forget that this guy was experimenting with serious drop tuning way back then. A lot of these new kids think that drop tuning is this new thing that just came out. And it's like, no way, Jimi Hendrix was doing that stuff a long time ago. Solos. Hundreds of videos can be done on just his solos alone. His solos were groundbreaking. No one played like this before, combining a wide realm of influences from blues, jazz, rock, and many others. He was a master soloist. Amazing technique, touch, feel, improvisation, experimentation, and mastery. He could play concise melodic leads or blast off with insane improvisations for hours and hours. It was blues, rock, and all those styles combined, but propelled by rocket fuel, blasting off into the heavens. You just have to listen to it as much as you can in the studio and especially live. Thankfully, so much of it was recorded. Guitars, amps, and tones. Jimi played a wide variety of amps in the studio and live. Of course, we all know him as a famous Strat player, but he also played a Gibson Flying V, Les Paul, and SG Custom. Check the Dick Cavett Show videos online. In his early days, he even played a Fender Jazzmaster, Jaguar, and Duo Sonic, Den Electro, and more. In the studio, he used small Fender and Supro combos, Marshalls, and his live amps. Live, he played Marshall Super Leads, Fender Dual Showmans, and Sun Coliseum PA amps, though he would use Marshalls exclusively on stage for most of his career. Guitar pedals, live and in the studio. This was 1966 and 1967. Guitars didn't use pedals. They were new and uncommon. Jimi pioneered the use of fuzz, wah, octave, and univibe, exploring their depths and combinations until he got the sound he was looking for. He even had Mayer hot rod his fuzz bass to be even more distorted. Yes, customizing guitar gear, he was an early innovator. He played all those pedals live and in the studio. Tuning and string gauge. On the Band of Gypsys live album, particularly Machine Gun, he's tuned all the way down to D. Standard tuning down one whole step. From E-A-D-G-B-E to D-G-C-A-F-D. He used slightly heavier strings the more he tuned down for stability and tone. He'd normally use 10s in E flat, but probably went down to 11s for the D tuning. This helped him get his unique tone, along with the string configuration and reversed headstock. The difference of length from bridge to tuning peg for each string. It was reversed compared to a right-handed guitar. This made bending high notes easier due to decreased tension. The lower strings had a big full sound because of the slightly higher string gauge and E flat or D tunings. This setup worked out great. Sonic adventure in the studio. All these different approaches and techniques with the sound of him getting the noises out of his head and onto the fretboard and ultimately through his amp cabinet. He'd intentionally bust his speakers to create distorted sounds. He had no boundaries when it came to trying things. Who can forget the insane tape flanging Kramer got for his amazing lead on the Axis title track? I can definitely tell you that it blew my little 13-year-old mind. The backwards guitar solo on Are You Experienced? I can remember years later putting it into a multi-track tape player and flipping it. I heard the guitar solo forwards for the first time. He constructed it specifically to come out the way it did backwards. I'll discuss this technique in a future video. Electric Ladyland combines everything from the first two albums and takes it several dimensions further, adding even more backwards sounds, echoes, flanges, loops, sounds, and textures. All very sci-fi. I love it. We hear all his backwards guitar concepts dive even further on 1983, A Merman I Should Turn to Be. The flanging on House Burning Down is the most amazing I've heard to this day. They really made it sound like the guitar was on fire. In 1968, there are so many amazing guitar textures on this album. It's a fine gourmet buffet of guitar tones.